Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you. My name is Adrien Schmidt. I'm a co-founder of a company called Bouquet. And I will be talking about something that's not directly related to pharma, but that is potentially related to some of the users that you could really care about, your customers. So the topic of the presentation today is to see how to build really engaging analytical features for your customers, for your end users in a very simple way. So a little bit of background. I co-founded Bouquet after working for about 10 years, rolling out portals and dashboards and analytical features for our customers as a consultant in projects. And we were facing a lot of these issues, so I'm going to share with you today how to do that in a very, very easy way. So first of all, when we're talking about customer-facing analytics, and I'll give you a couple of examples as we go. The first question is, why are you talking about this topic? And really, customer-facing analytics is a way of providing information to your users, to your customers, and it's becoming an increasingly vital feature in every product. Why? Because if your users understand the value that they get from using your product, then they'll stay. And you can compete better, and you'll retain them. So let me give you an example. If you use an activity tracker and you measure all your runs, you log into your activity tracker app, and you can compare, you have all this history of running and doing these activities and workouts, and having this historical data is a key asset that makes you stay with the activity tracker that you're using. So let me give you some examples of how companies are using customer-facing analytics today. And so let's take a look at this. This is a dashboard coming from a solar panel company that provides energy. And this is what they give to their users. So the main chart right here is pretty basic, right? How much energy did you produce? But they're trying to make it a little bit more engaging by saying, you know what, okay, you produced 658 kilowatt hours of energy, but that corresponds to 1,000 pounds of CO2 emissions that you avoided, right? And that's, 1,000 plus miles not driven and so on and so forth. And, you planted 12 trees by not, producing carbon emissions by doing that. So a little way to, to tweak the data and make it a little bit more engaging for consumers, which, are not analysts. Other examples of customer-facing analytics, this is the connected scale. And when you step on it, it comes with an app, and that app actually gives you a lot of analytics to help you, I'd say, manage your health based on the measurements that are taken by this scale. So it's a key feature of this app to actually provide engaging, visual, simple analytics. And here, seeing this consumer product, you understand that there could be some different requirements compared to other types of analytics. These guys sell hundreds of thousands of scales. So you have hundreds of thousands of users connecting to their app and looking at their own data. And it has to be super fast. So it has to be very simple, very fast, scalable to millions of users. And those are some of the specificities of customer-facing analytics. Now I want to stop a little bit on this one. This is the American Express portal. And this is what you get in terms of analytics. So, you have a simple donut chart, and it kind of tries to categorize your expenses. When I see that, I kind of think, well, American Express is big enough and has enough, resources to provide something better, right? And I mean, I don't know, you could think of a ton of things that they could provide around that. They could provide ways for you to, I don't know, an app to help you file your taxes, for example, by categorizing depending on what your job is, by saying, okay, well, this is how much you can deduct, or this is how much you cannot deduct, and I don't know, being a little bit more creative in terms of building these customer-facing analytics. But it's not that easy, all right? And it's not that easy because it's a feature of a product. It's not a dashboard for a business analyst. It's not something that you have internally. It's hard because you're talking to developers who are building the product. It's a feature, right? Developers work with designers, they work with product owners, they work with and then the marketing team, and then they work with a whole bunch of testers and everything. Even maybe you have different parts of the development that are done in a team, so it has collaboration. You have to, take care of performance if you have users. All of this stuff, maybe sometimes generating a tons of data. So that pretty much adds up to customer-facing analytics being often stuck inside of the roadmap, or sometimes being, turning into something like this, right? So what we do at Bouquet, and I'm going to show you some examples of other kinds of customer-facing analytics we could do, is we try to help developers and product teams build compelling analytics into their product by addressing the issues that, kind of hold them back. So that's pretty much it for the introduction. Now I'm going to show you a couple of demos to see how this all works and how you could use it to build your customer-facing analytics inside of your own products. So the first thing I'm going to do is just give you some basics. All right. So the idea here is to describe a little bit how our product called Bouquet works. And the whole point of Bouquet is to provide developers with APIs that are really easy to integrate into their product, even if you're querying massive amounts of data in a database in the back end. Okay? So what you have on the left-hand side is, a couple lines of JavaScript code that pretty much you embed inside of your web portal, or if you choose to use another language inside of your mobile app. And this is pretty much your query, okay? So you're going to be querying an object called a bookmark, which I'll show you how to build a little bit later on. But all you have to say is, pretty much use common language. I want to have this time frame here, so it's it's the year 2008, and these are the metrics that I want to display. And how do I want to group it or order it? And so this query is made really accessible in this form. And then, you authenticate because, security around your data is something key, and then you say how you want to render it. So let's take a look at how this, this can change, right? If you just replace the 2008 timeframe with current month, and, you run it, you update the chart, what actually happened in the back end, so this chart is rendered in Plotly. In the back end, you generated this JSON code that you see here on the right-hand side. And what Bouquet did to render this code through the API was to automatically generate this SQL query. So for you as a developer, instead of doing all this back-end engineering where you have to ask someone or write the query yourself, and then do all this PHP to tie it to your website, and then manage the authentication, and then provide a cache because you want it to execute faster for your customers. You're actually not doing any of that. You're just embedding this PHP code that embeds all the power of what we call a bookmark. So then your next question is, okay, cool. How do you build a bookmark? So building a bookmark is pretty simple. This is the Bouquet interface right here. So a bookmark is basically a bookmark of a query. So if you open a bookmark, you have an interface, what we call the query builder, with your list of dimensions on the right-hand side, of metrics, and all the functions that you could use to define those metrics or refine those dimensions. And you pretty much drag and drop these things from one side to the other in order to build your query. You run it, right? You can preview the results and say, okay, this is pretty much what I kind of want to use in my graph. And then you just use this. This is pretty much the API, the URL that will generate your query. So if I, use this URL, I'll get the exact same query, and I can tweak this URL because all of my parameters of my query are defined in here. So if, let me see if I can edit it in a way that's simple here. If I want to say, well, instead of having a descending order, I want an ascending order, then there you go, I'm running this query, and now my results are in ascending order. So all of the parameters of the query are in this URL, which makes it super easy to embed. And all right, and then once you've done that, okay, it's great. Now let's talk about the how you embed that into your product. And so I have all these database connections right here that are listed in my project. And what I might want to do is, so for this example here, get the authentication parameters that I could use to open up the access for my end users. So really, in just a couple of clicks, I have a JWT-powered authentication that is signed, that makes it secure to access those bookmarks. So let's see how to use that in actual implementations. So this is an example of, so we're using a test account with, on an actual customer, just to show you what kind of visualizations you can build. So this is a dashboard representing with a ton of metrics and many different types of charts that you could use. And in this case, it's a content provider selling to libraries. And they want to view the content that their researchers are accessing. And so they have a whole portal that is being built using these bookmarks. So each library only sees the data that's being accessed by its own users. And there's the capability of using embedded features such as these pivots right here if you want to see by by publisher, by title, select the date ranges. All of this is given to the developer to develop this more efficiently. Now, this is cool, but we've all seen dashboards and stuff, and so we actually think that we have a use case here where we wanted we were building analytics, and we are building analytics for salespeople who have 300 accounts to go to, and they're like, okay, you have these dashboards and you have these visualizations, and it's all good, but I don't have time, to do this. And the same thing for their customers. They don't want to log into a portal and spend too much time doing this kind of visualizations and accessing data. So this is another way to use the Bouquet API using a chatbot. So to make things even faster, you have mobile, like pretty fast, but faster than mobile, now you have messaging applications. So this here is, I'm going to demo you how to use Bouquet bookmarks and the API in a messaging app to query a database. So let's introduce ourselves to the bot. So hey there, how's it going? Well, hello, how may I help you? So I'm going to say, well, how about you show me my overall sales, right? Overall sales. Okay. Well, bot's being very encouraging. Your sales are looking pretty good. I prepared a chart for you to look at. Cool, let's take a look. Okay, all right, well there's a lot of information in there, so maybe I'll need to, I will want to interact with this thing, right? And ask for more specific information. So I could see that, in this case, I'm selling content to universities, and so each university, I could see, okay, they had, sessions and sessions last year, and, and then, how they downloaded content in PDF format and HTML. So there's a lot of stuff. So, what I'm actually interested in is how these folks are converting, meaning how many sessions are generating how many downloads. So how about conversion ratios? Okay, well, here's a chart based on conversion ratios. Great, all right. So, all right, Zurich University has a pretty high conversion ratio, and, well, UC Berkeley looks like folks are browsing content, but not necessarily, downloading as much stuff as they are per session than Zurich University. So let's now look into specific accounts. All right, so could you show me the numbers for MIT? Okay, so take a look at the overall numbers of Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And, in this case, I don't need to have a graph. I don't need to have a visualization. Actually, this could even be, there's a little bit too much information here, but this could typically be translated from text to speech and speech to text, or vice versa. So here, I asked for the overall numbers, right? And I'm like, okay, this is cool. How about another university? So I want the same thing, but I want it for Ohio State University. So I don't have to retype the whole thing. I'm just saying, okay, how about OSU? Cool. Well, take a look at the overall numbers for Ohio State University, and there you go. So I have these different numbers. What's happening in the back end is a query to the Bouquet API, but this gives me the numbers for OSU. Now, there's still a lot of information here. So, you know, could you focus on conversion ratios, right? Because this is actually what I'm most interested in walking into this meeting. Okay, so what are you telling me? Oh, so OSU has a conversion ratio of 0.4 for sessions to PDF downloads, and that's a decrease of 27% from last year. Okay, so you know, walking into this meeting with Ohio State University, I'm going to have to try to explain, you know, more what kind of value their users are getting, and maybe work with them on, you know, how to promote our content maybe a little bit better. Okay, and what's going on with their volumes? So how about their articles accessed? So here I'm staying in the context of Ohio State University. I'm interacting with this bot, and I'm saying, and then I get the response, well, you know, OSU has accessed, you know, 300K articles last year, and that's pretty flat, all right, 0.8%. Okay, cool. And, you know, what are their top journals? What are their top journals, right? I mean, which journals do they access most? And, well, the top journals are, you know, Nature, Science, and so on and so forth. So still within the context of this conversation, I'm actually querying this usage database interactively with this bot. Okay, great. Can you email me these results? Because then, you know, I want to keep a trace of it. Wonderful. So thank you very much. And I think I'm, you know, thanks for the bot. Have a nice day. There you go. So this is, so, you know, the purpose here is even to imagine that, you know, if you have 100 or 200 of those universities to visit per year, you may have 5, 6, 7, 8 meetings a day. You don't have time to prepare for every single one of them by going to an interactive dashboard or stuff like that. So, I mean, the use cases that we're implementing through this, especially for, you know, the latter ones right here, is really you're in your car, basically, and you can query your data, and you can get analytical results in your car driving through a text-to-speech or speech-to-text interface. And that speeds up the time to information, the time to data in pretty dramatic ways. And we've found that, you know, this is how you can actually get more people to access data more and to use it more inside of your company. So imagine that you're giving this to your end users or your customers. They don't have to learn about, you know, pivots and charts and dashboards. I mean, the chart comes in context of a conversation, so it just makes sense. You know, it's self-explanatory. So all right, well, this is pretty much what I wanted to show you today. I'll skip to this, you know. As a wrap-up, we really think that, you know, customer-facing analytics and providing information to your users about their data, about how they're using your product, is a really important feature, because that's what makes them sticky, and that's what makes them understand the value that they get from your product. So definitely don't leave it in the roadmap. And if you do that, well, might as well do it well and integrate with some really cool stuff, right? And there's a whole range of options that go beyond the donut chart that we've seen from American Express, including now messaging apps to integrate with that. So, all right, well, that's pretty much what I wanted to show you. So if anybody has questions, I'm happy to take them. Thank you very much.
Very interesting presentation. I'm curious from a kind of user experience perspective, the sort of switching modalities from visual to reading, sort of textual to verbal. Have you noticed anything as far as like any patterns emerging, or is it still too early to figure out what people are gravitating towards or thinking about how switching their sort of mode from one kind of way of input-output to another?
So you mean from switching from something like
graph,
this?
or like, let's say that I'm looking at the bot. I'm looking
Yeah.
at the sort of thread there, and I want to see that maybe represented on the chart, or the interactions between the different modalities, or if you're in your car, can you say pin this or whatever, save it for me to look later? You know what I'm saying? Those kinds of interactions.
Yeah. So so we're still pretty early on this. The use case right now is email, right? The way to pin it is to say, okay, just shoot this out to me. The other implementation that we have is to send a link to the equivalent of this dashboard, right? To say, okay, now I want to deep dive, and send me the link to the corresponding bookmark, right, in this dashboard. So you could, if you're using the chat, this is not the use case where you're using text to speech, but if you're chatting, then you could click that link and directly get to the bookmark inside of the of this, right, of a dashboard. So you could then drill down and stuff. But really, the basic idea is to say, we want more people to access more data, right? That's really the core thing. And they are just, even, you can train them as much as you want. You could build as many beautiful, stuff like this as you want. At the end of the day, if they don't have time, you have to shorten the time to access that. And this is the fastest thing that we've seen so far.
This is probably very general in terms of chatbots and all this craze that it gets now. Have you thought about discoverability? Because the whole idea of a chatbot is that you can do anything, but you can't in some sense, because there are some limits, programmatic limits. So how do the user know what's actually possible?
Yeah, so first of all, what is possible today is different from what is possible tomorrow. So this chatbot here is an AI chatbot, so it learns, right? It's not a rule-based chatbot where you actually have to define all the rules. I mean, there is some training to do, but as time goes by, it learns, and so it covers more. The scope that it covers is broader and broader. In the case that we're working on right here, it's pretty well defined, because this initial bot right here is for salespeople, right? So, I mean, they're going to be accessing their accounts, their territories, stuff like that, but they're not going to be asking, wild questions, right? So we keep it kind of constrained to this particular use case over here. We haven't seen things, I mean, this is too early to see if we have seen, to see some really wild things. What it does is, when it doesn't know the answer of a question, it sends us an email basically saying, okay, you have to define this new case because we don't know how to handle it, right? We, being the bot, doesn't know how to handle it. So I don't know if that kind of answers your question. For sure, this is just a simple UI. This is our kind of prototype UI, but you can integrate this into Slack, into Facebook Messenger. I mean, whichever actual messaging service you're using, right?
Have you looked into, are people retaining information that they're accessing this way? Like, if they're sort of half paying attention, they're in their car, they're talking to a chat bot, do they actually know the context that they're in, and are they going to remember it when the car ride is over?
Yeah, so what do they want to know? I mean, what they want to know is, am I walking into a hard meeting? Or am I walking into oh man, I'm going to increase my prices by 10% because, we're just killing it, right? So the really important feature is this compare, right? A decrease of 0.8%. You hear that, you're like, okay, I'm not going to be able to have a huge price increase. I should be able to retain this customer. Okay, what we're working on is simplifying these numbers right here, right? So 316,752 articles is not the right way to present that. So it's like, okay, you're accessing 300 and over 300K or 320K. And this is what we're fine-tuning to make it actually easier for a person to remember, right? So that's how we're fine-tuning. Also, another way to help people remember this stuff is to work on the formatting of this thing. So if you're using the chat, we want to have different colors, even just for the text, just to make it easier to get the major numbers. So there is definitely a lot of UI work to do around that to make it, to answer what you're saying. But we're exploring right now.
I'm curious with the bot, is there any sort of feedback mechanism in terms of figuring out if it's giving the right data and the best visualization to the user? Because there's one path you can look at is what's the path they take down the subsequent questions that they ask the bot, and then if that path ends, you assume that you get to the final piece of information they're looking for, but it may just be that they get frustrated or things like that. So is there any feedback mechanism so when you go back to train this thing that you can actually tell that you're feeding it the best information or you're feeding the right visualization or things like that?
Yeah, so that's a great one. I would say this is in the roadmap. So we're looking at products like Dashbot, which actually provide analytics for bots, right? The thing is, we're working with a really cool partner here called glib.ai, who powers this, and so this is kind of hand-in-hand thing. But definitely, I won't be the one saying, don't do analytics on your bot, right? It's like for everything, you need analytics to understand this. So, yeah, need it. Don't have it yet. That's where we are.
So further to that question, I guess a bit more technically as well, what do you actually have to provide Glib with in order to get the interoperation with your system? Do you give them some kind of definition of the different options that are available, some kind of parameterized definition, and then they can map that to the conversation? Like, how exactly are they interfacing with your system?
You mean, so I'm not sure I got the question exactly. How is Glib integrating with Bouquet? Is that right? Okay. Yeah, so, well, Glib needs a vocabulary of the stuff that is of the analytics, basically. And we provide that vocabulary through our meta model. So if you look at, I don't know, this is a really simple one, but this is a demo project, but if you look at, this is basically the meta model of your database, and we enrich that meta model through descriptions. I mean, if you edit this, right, this is where you can actually define a lot of properties around a particular domain, right? So you edit descriptions, so these are the actors in the movie, right? You can add keywords, keyword 1, and so on and so forth. This is also where you actually define if it's a metric, for example. So here, let me cancel this thing. If you're editing a metric, right, this is also where you would define the formula and use all the possible stuff that you can edit the formula with, right? So math functions and all that kind of stuff. So in this is what constitutes the meta model, and this is our starting point to feed the bot, for it to train it on the definitions that we're using, on the metrics that we're using, and this is how it knows how to query the bookmarks.
Fascinating. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.